This is Prince's Road Synagogue, renowned as one of the most beautiful synagogues in Western Europe. It is a Grade 1 listed building which is situated in an area which contains many religious buildings, both Christian and Muslim. As you approach the synagogue, you will see a horseshoe-shaped portal bearing two wooden oak doors, which are the originals from 1878. If you look up towards the roof, you will see 6 octagonal turrets, which were originally topped by minarets that were removed on health and safety grounds by Liverpool City Council in 1960. As you come through the door, you enter the vestibule, which has a beautiful Minton tile floor bearing Star of David motifs. Before you enter the central mahogany doors, you'll notice on the floor a Hebrew inscription which reads, "Blessed are you who enter here."
When I first looked in here, I gasped. And this is the sound that I've heard from many other people. Just taking it in is something of a revelation. There was no doubt an effort to construct a synagogue that would make that sort of impact, because it's about walking into a house of God which has been built with love. It's not just a question of being austere and cold about it. That wouldn't be the idea at all, the way I see it. It's a synagogue which is painted and decorated to evoke a sense of closeness. And that is why, even if I am a part-time rabbi in this community, I feel fully bonded and bound in with the spirituality of the experience here.
Well, the first thing is, when I open the double doors and they see the extent and the beauty of the synagogue, they are really quite overcome by it. The most amusing one was a school child, a little Down syndrome girl of about 11, who was quite taken by the place, and her eyes lit up and she said to me, "It's just like Hogwarts."
My favourite part is actually standing just behind the dome and minarets and looking down into the synagogue from there. There's a choir, they sing behind these the domes and minarets, but I just feel that from that vantage point you're seeing more than just a synagogue, you're seeing a reflection of a holy city. There's something of Jerusalem in this. I'm sure that this was in the thoughts of the architects at the time. And of course, the idea that we see ourselves before the Holy of Holies in Jerusalem is, according to Maimonides, what we are supposed to reflect when we actually engage in the central prayer, the Amidah. So that is very helpful, because you can actually transport yourself when you are engaged in the service.
The first Jews arrived in Liverpool in the 1750s, and they established the first Jewish community in the north of England. But they weren't very large in number, between 50 to 100, probably less. They established their congregation in Stanley Street, close to the Met Quarter. But in 1790, they were able to purchase a townhouse in Chinatown, 133 Upper Frederick Street. And by about 1808, it became obvious that they need a much bigger building, so they decided to build their own purpose-built synagogue, which was situated at the top of Seal Street. The building was in keeping with the architecture of Liverpool at the time, which of course was an up-and-coming city. But it did not look like a synagogue. It had Greek Ionic columns outside and didn't even sport a Star of David, because it was necessary to be unobtrusive and not to draw too much attention to themselves. This premises lasted until the 1870s and was adequate for them, but by the 1870s the building was bursting at the seams, and it became necessary to think about constructing a bigger and perhaps more impressive structure, as the community was now wealthier than it had been in 1808.
With the Jewish community expanding, the founding fathers felt that they wanted a larger building, and they in fact leased this land from the Earl of Sefton and started to build a synagogue around about 1868, 1869. The synagogue cost £13,000 in those days. They sold the synagogue in Seal Street, which sadly is no longer. Now the building was built here. It was decided to build it here on this land because the Jewish community, in fact the wider community also, were moving out of the city centre, who were established in Canning Street, Catherine Street, Faulkner, Huskisson Street. So this synagogue in fact was built primarily for people who lived in those areas, you know, it's more affluent. And I would think that this synagogue was basically on the fringe of the, as it was then in those days, of the city centre.
And they decided to have a competition. So they put an advertisement in the local paper, and 7 architectural firms applied for the job. And interestingly, 6 of these firms were Jewish firms. Each one of them produced a blueprint which was each and every one rejected by the building committee. The 2 men that won the project were 2 Scottish Presbyterian brothers from Edinburgh, who had made quite a reputation for themselves building churches in Liverpool. They were known as the Audsley brothers. They had, of course, never built a synagogue before, so they went on a trip of southern Europe looking at synagogue design in south of France, Spain, Italy, North African coast. They came up with a blueprint which was acceptable to the building committee, and the foundation stone was laid in December of 1872.
Princes Road is a very traditional synagogue. It is almost church-like in many ways and is considered to be the third cathedral. The nave, as it were, is traditional cathedral-like with a high vaulted ceiling, barrel ceiling. There's a mixture of architectural designs, Victorian, Moorish, certainly the arc end here. You will see that the domes replicate possibly North Africa and going into the Middle East, minarets at the side of the domes. And in fact its beauty was very carefully considered by the architects and the building committee of the day, and in many ways it makes a statement.
The synagogue was opened on September the 3rd, 1874. It was consecrated as fit for prayer by the chief rabbi, who came up from London with a number of his colleagues, and of course all the civic dignitaries of Liverpool were in attendance. After the opening, apparently they all repaired to the Adelphi Hotel for a 22-course meal, of which we still have the menu.
Every time I come into the building, it is like a new experience. It's basically, for me, it's beauty magnified. It has a presence, and it's a comfortable feeling having been associated with the building, you know, all the years that I've been coming here.